Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to our first session for week 3 of Design 355. Let's quickly talk a bit about what we are going to be doing today. First of all, we'll go over any new announcements for this week, and then we are going to talk about our week 3 discussion. We have a video on how to promote and market yourself, which, as you've seen from the things we've talked about in week 1 and week 2, are extremely important if you want to be working as a freelancer or running your own design business. We'll talk about our assessment for this week, and we will talk about our assignment for this week. We're going to talk about creating forms in InDesign, which is going to be part of the assignment for this week. And then finally, I'm going to finish off by going over some of the guidelines that I use for my own business. So first of all, starting with the announcements. Let me just grab something here real quick. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and pop into here. We're actually going to make a new announcement right now. So this is our Learning Coaches Week 3 schedule. All right, let me just throw this in here and we'll take a look at it. So here is Christy's schedule for this week. She's going to have time available on Wednesday from 12 till 7, on Thursday from 4 to 9, Friday from 12 to 5, and then Saturday from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. And we have her contact information here, of course. Also, anytime outside of those hours, definitely the Student Success Center is available a lot of the time during the day. Many days they're open 9, 10 in the morning, and they close 9, 10, 11, 12 even at night. So definitely take advantage of that. And also be sure to email me if you have questions or need help from me. I finished all the grading that we have turned in so far at the end of week 2. We're going to be doing an in-class critique of the 2 marketing pieces that you guys did in week 2 on Thursday. And there were some really good ones there, so we saw some great stuff. So we'll look forward to going over those and seeing what each other are doing. But be sure to go in there and read over the rubrics, the comments, and let me know if you have any questions about anything. For any of you that still have past due work that has not been turned in yet, remember you still can turn that in. I just need you to get it in as quickly as you can. I'll be grading again on Monday, and we'll grade you those late things. There is a 20% deduction for the late submission, but it's still, that leaves up to 80% available for your grade. So well worth doing. Okay. So let me know if you have any questions about any of that. Let's now go take a look at our week 3 discussion. So our discussion this week is on something called an RFP, and that stands for a request for proposal. And we're going to be looking at responses to RFPs, okay? So a request for proposal is something that a company puts out basically saying that we are looking for someone to do this. Let's go ahead and just read this here. The background says sometimes when a company is looking to hire an outside contractor to complete a project, they will issue a request for proposal, an RFP, which is essentially a detailed description of the job and an invitation for companies or individuals to respond with quotes or estimated costs and reasons why they should be chosen for the job. Understanding the right way to respond to these RFPs can be the difference between you getting the job or someone else. So think about it as putting a bid together for the job. You're going to say, this is how much it would cost for me to do it, and here's why you should hire me to do this. Under the prompt, it says to read the following article. If we go to this list here, or link here, you'll see it's called The 10 Things You Need to Know When Responding to RFPs. And it lists 10 different things that you need to know when responding to these. So, what do you feel are the three most important aspects of responding to an RFP? Why are they the most important? Why are they more important than some of the others discussed in the article? What preparation can you do to ensure that you cover your bases in the three areas you choose? Now, for your citation, it says you might use articles that show examples of the benefits of diligence in those areas or the consequences of ignoring them. You can also find articles from experts that suggest what is the most important in an RFP response. And your initial and reply posts should work to develop a group understanding of this topic, challenge each other, build on each other, always be respectful, but discuss this and figure it out together. So we have the same guidelines or same requirements, I should say, as we've had in the last 2 weeks, but to just go over those again. Your initial response to this needs to be at least 200 words and have 2 APA citations, and it needs to be in by Wednesday at midnight. Okay, so your initial ones need to be in by Wednesday at midnight. Then you also need to do 2 follow-up posts. Those are replies to your classmates' posts. Those need to be at least 50 words, and they need to be in by Saturday at midnight. You need to also post on at least 2 days of the week. So don't do all of those 3 on the same day. Make sure you're spreading that out a little bit. Okay, so that is our discussion for this week. Be sure to let me know if you have any questions about that at all. All right, so real quick, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to watch a video on how to promote and market yourself. And then we're going to go, how to promote and market yourself. And then we'll get into the assessment, the assignment for this week. This is a pretty good video. It's by the same fellow that we saw before, Roberto Blake, or one of the same people we saw before, Roberto Blake. Roberto's really quite, let's say, well, he's very talented. He's also very, very enthusiastic about marketing. So he's got some great ideas here. And while you're watching this at home, I'd recommend taking notes and thinking of at least 2 or 3 things that you could try yourself to see if they would be successful for you. I'm going to go ahead and I just have to share my screen again to make sure that we've got the audio when I do this. So we're going to watch this video, and again, email me if you have questions about it, but we want you to think of 2 or 3 things that you could use yourself in making your business stronger and getting yourself started as a freelance designer. Okay.
Video, I'm going to talk about how you promote. Hey everybody, this is graphic designer Roberto Blake, and in today's YouTube video, I'm going to talk about how you promote yourself as a graphic designer. If you're just tuning into the channel, I usually do graphic design videos on Mondays, so make sure you're subscribed to get all of those. In reading your comments and your emails, I've learned something very interesting. One of the things that you guys are not getting in your formal education in graphic design school is the breakdown on how you actually promote yourself as a graphic designer, and the fact that you should even be doing it at all. You're getting a lot of advice, even from me, about your resume and your portfolio, and that's great, and it's still super important to you building your career, getting those first jobs, etc. But a lot of that is still the traditional way of approaching things, and that's why you're hearing more of that. A lot of people aren't realizing or are not telling you that there are several unconventional ways of promoting yourself and getting a job opportunity, and that may be that's what's holding you back, because you can't compete in that conventional arena where everybody's competing. You need to do something different, and you need to get noticed. And part of that is promoting yourself in the right ways. And there's a lot of different ways you can approach that. You probably already have figured out that one of the directions I'm going to go in here is going to be social media and obviously video promotion. So to give you some background on all of this, one of the things you need to know is when I got my first job at an advertising agency, I did not apply to that advertising agency. I did not mail them my resume. I did not email them my resume. I did not walk by. I didn't know anybody there. They called me out of the blue, and it's because they found my website. they looked at my work, they looked me up in social, and they decided that they wanted to hire me and that I was capable of doing the work that they wanted. And that only happened because they were able to find me in Google because I had been blogging about graphic design. I'd been talking about it in social media. I had been very present and pronounced on every platform that I could, that I was involved in graphic design, and that's what I was ultimately aspiring to do, and that I was looking to work at an ad agency. So by putting that out there, by marketing, by promoting and showing my expertise, my knowledge, and showing off my work, that's how I got the gig. Now, some other things that I did that led up to that probably helped me were the fact that I did manage to get my artwork published in Advanced Photoshop and Photoshop Creative Magazine. I won a few online competitions. I've been featured in blogs and articles by other people. And those things happened because, again, I got the ball rolling. I decided to put myself out there, promote myself, and just take every opportunity for exposure. And you don't need to limit yourself in doing that. You don't need to limit yourself in just doing that locally. You should be trying to get out there, and if there's an industry event that you can make it to or something that's remotely related to what you're doing creatively, go there and pass out your business cards. Part of promoting yourself is having a few key pieces in place to market and promote yourself and show off your best work. So if you don't have one already, you need to have a business card. Obviously, that needs to be pointing them to your website. If you don't have one, you need to go out and get a website. You can get one through any number of web hosting providers. I'll leave some affiliate link stuff in the description below, but you can go out and you can definitely do that. You can get a domain name, and you can actually just point your domain name at your Behance portfolio. It's a totally free website where you can showcase your graphic design work, behance.net. If you have Adobe Creative Cloud, you can directly move your work that you've already finished into your Behance portfolio and show it off right away. So, there's no reason for you to not have an online portfolio that's professional. Cost is not an excuse here. There's all kinds of ways that you can do it free or affordably. So once you have that in place, it needs to be on your business card. If you're doing flyers, it needs to be on those, etc. You need to be showcasing your work wherever you can. Definitely have a print portfolio. I've gone over in multiple videos the importance of having a solid portfolio and having one that's ready to go for web, one for print, and even having one on your mobile device, even if it's just a simple image gallery of all of the work that you've done. You need to just have that so you can show it off in whatever context you need to. Now, while it's important to have your own website and to be in these other places, having your own website is great, having your own blog is great, but if you're not promoting and driving traffic to it, then the odds are no one's going to really see it and be interested in it. So you need to be in online communities like Behance, like DeviantArt, and just anywhere that you can put your work. The reason I was able to get some of my stuff published in Advanced Photoshop was because they had a community website and forums and galleries where I could post my work. Other people would comment on it, would like it. That's how I won a Photoshop Creative Editor's Choice Award, and that was even last year. I don't update there nearly as often anymore, but I do. People still see it. It still becomes valuable to me marketing myself and to building up my overall brand. And there's a lot of other things you can do. You could make a bunch of free bookmarks and have your contact info on them, have your artwork on them, and leave them in your local big bookstore. Just start giving them away to anybody you see shopping for books. Maybe they need a graphic designer for something. So this can lead to client gigs. This could lead to you getting the job opportunities you want. Just be super creative. I've seen graphic designers do a ton of creative things to promote themselves. Everything from buying a billboard that says hire me with their contact info on it to replicating a popular magazine and sending it out to creative agencies. So, there's all kinds of things you can do. Something else that I'm doing that's even more recent to promote myself as a graphic designer, as an artist, is something that you've probably heard me showing off and talking about in social media. Is I made t-shirts. I made Create Awesome t-shirts that you can buy and order through Spreadshirt, and I'm buying a bunch of the different colors and designs of it that I like, so that when I meet people and I'm wearing it and I'm engaging with them, they're going to ask me about my shirt and what it means. And then I get to tell them about the Create Awesome community that we have, my philosophy, that you should always be creating content, always be creating something for yourself and sharing it with the world, sharing it for others, and always creating value for others. That's a good conversation starter, and that's the point. Promoting and marketing yourself isn't always tooting your own horn. It's creating a way of engaging with people that really gets the ball going, and for them to see the value you have to offer, and for you to find out if they have value that you might be interested in utilizing in some way or sharing with other people. So you want to build those relationships, but you're not going to do it being a wallflower and just hoping that people find you and stumble across your work. You have to create those opportunities for people to see what you have. So if you're only sending out resumes, then that your potential opportunities are literally limited by the places you've applied to, the emails that you sent, and the resumes that have gone out. You're not doing anything else, and you have no other way or no other avenue for those opportunities and those people to find you. And that's my whole point here, is you need to be creating that. So anybody that sees merchandise that I create, anybody who sees these YouTube videos, anybody who sees anything that I'm putting out in the world might decide that, hey, I want to hire Roberto Blake to do something for me. And that happens, and that's a reason why I can go ahead and have my own creative design business, and I can do the things that I want to do, and why I have the time to share my experience with you guys. So again, just to recap, take every opportunity to promote yourself. Make sure you have a strong website. Make sure you have all of your personal print marketing material. Make sure that it all syncs together and works seamlessly. Make sure that you're creating every opportunity that you can to go out there and market and promote yourself. You know, go out to your local bookstores, coffee shops, network with people, go to events, go to parties, go to conventions, do anything you can to just get your name out there and get people interested in your work. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below. Like this video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out the other great content on the channel. As always, you guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget, you can pick up the new Create Awesome t-shirts in my Spreadshirt store, which is robertoblake.spreadshirt.com. There'll be a link in the description below. And don't forget, create something.
Okay, so hopefully you've got some good ideas there. I mean, the main key, as you can see, is to be coming up with as many ways to market yourself as possible, to get yourself out there in front of other people, to let other people know that you are available as a graphic designer. And you'll notice he talked about the fact that he made these t-shirts to promote him. And then what did he do at the end of his video? Well, he promoted the t-shirts. He said, hey, we've got these t-shirts if you want them, which again is just going to help to promote him. So he's trying to turn other people into promoters. Now, turning other people into promoters is one of the most important things you can do as a graphic designer. Most of the time, that's just as through referrals. You do a good enough job for someone, they feel like that they really, really are glad that they went with you, and then you're going to all of a sudden have them as a promoter, them out there promoting your business and sending other clients your way. And I can tell you, this is absolutely the best way to go. Most of my business comes in through word of mouth these days, through people, ex-clients of mine referring new clients to me, as well as repeat business. And this is absolutely the position you want to get yourself into. You want to get yourself to where you're getting a lot of repeat business, and that repeat business is sending you new business. Okay? So hopefully that gives you some good ideas. Now, let's go ahead and let's take a look at our assessment for this week. For our assessment this week, we're going to be working in Excel again. And it's, again, not a difficult one, but I'm also going to teach you some tips and tricks in Excel today that will help you with this, as well as other business forms and calculations and personal forms and calculations in Excel. So today we're going to learn about basic accounting. And there are a lot of great programs out there for businesses for accounting, but they cost money. You all have Excel, and Excel can do some basic accounting, at least the minimal stuff that you need. We really can do even huge stuff. It's just going to take more work. But for this, we're going to use Excel because of that, because it's something you all have and can get started with. So the background says tracking the income and outflow of money is a basic but vital part of running a business. Understanding where you stand financially and making decisions based upon that knowledge can be the difference between a business's success and failure. So last week we put together these budgets, and these budgets are great, but on their own, they're worthless. They're only going to work if you follow the budget, or at least are aware that you're not following the budget. At least you have to at least be aware that turns out you're spending more than you thought you were going to, or you're spending less than you thought you were going to, or you're earning more or less than you thought you were going to. And then you can adjust the budget as needed based upon that. The place you don't want to be is in the dark. You don't want to be unaware of what's happening with your finances because that's one of the quickest ways to kill a business. Okay? So the prompt, it says, for this assessment, watch this video on creating an account ledger using Excel. So we've got this video right here, and make sure to watch that before you do this. And then I'm going to give you a demonstration as well in just a minute. It says, using the 3-year budget that you did in week 2 as a guide, create a hypothetical ledger tracking all income and expenses for 1 month. Use your design skills to format it so it looks professional. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up Excel, and let's talk about how we would do this 3-month ledger. Okay, so here we are in Excel. So in order to, the most basic ledger, I'm just going to do a really, really simple tracking of income, expenses, and a balance, okay? So I'm just going to create 4 columns here. I'm going to create one column that is our date. Actually, 5 columns, I guess. So one column that's our date. I'm going to create a column for income. I'm going to create a column for expenses. And I'm going to create a column for our balance. So now I guess 4 columns, yeah. I'm just going to go ahead and bold those so they stand out a little bit from here. So, oh, sorry, no, 5. I forgot one of my columns. I'm going to go ahead and create a column here, and we will call, it's basically to name what it is. Let's see, what should we call this one? We'll call it item. So I'm going to start this off on the 1st of February for this example, and I'm going to call this item February start. Okay, so this is just how much money do I have in February to begin with, and that's not really an income and expense, so I'm going to leave those blank. And let's say I have $1,000 to start. I'm going to go ahead and just format these 3 as money. Selected them and clicked the $sign there to format them as money, since I know that's what they're all going to be. So what I have so far tells me that at the beginning of February, I had $1,000. Okay? So all I would need to do going forward is keep track of any income or expenses that I did. Now, again, like it said in the description of this assessment, you're going to use the 3-year budget you made last week as a guide for this. So you've already written down what expenses you expect during the month. You've also written down how much income you expect. Now just kind of split that income up over a few jobs so that it looks like real income. But you're going to use that as your guide for how much you made and how much you spent. And you want to put every item in there. So every single expense you put in there, make sure it ends up in this budget. Every single if the total amount of income, if you said you were going to make $10,000 that year, make sure you have a total income of $10,000, but you would split that up over several different jobs. So let's pretend that we started the month off with an expense. Okay, so let's say we started off the month with an electric bill. So you see I'm putting electric. Let's say that was also due on 2/1. Now that is an expense, so I'm going to put that in the expense column. Okay, so because that's an expense, it's going to go right here, and let's say that it was $120. So my balance now equals this minus that, right? So Now, let's go to the next one. So I've now got $880 as my balance for my business. So now I'm going to say that on we'll go that way, February 4th, I did a brochure for someone. And for that brochure, they paid me $800. Okay, and so again, I'm going to say that my income is that, my previous balance, plus the $800 I made. So now my balance is $1,680. Okay, let's say next that I had on the 5th of February an internet bill. And my internet bill was $60. That's an expense. So again, I'm going to say equals my previous balance plus $60. Now, we're going to go over several tricks that you can use in order to make Excel go faster and work better for you today, in this sense, and several other business and personal senses. But I'm going to show you one trick right now. I've been going through and I've been manually doing the calculation for this balance every time. But I can easily have that maintain my balance as I go in and type this. And so actually I'm going to leave this for a second and I'm going to open up a new file. We're going to come back to we'll just do a different worksheet. How's that? Come down here and make a new sheet. We're going to come back to our budget and talk about automating that a little bit more. But first, I want to just go over some basics of Excel and a little bit of a little more advanced in Excel for those of you who are interested in this. Because let me give you my background with Excel. First of all, I used Excel quite a bit when I was younger. I've written training guides on Excel. I really know Excel quite well. I don't know everything about Excel. Excel is such a huge and rich program. You could take an entire, college courses on it for a year and to learn everything about it. Excel does everything from just basic tracking like we were just doing all the way up to writing software programs right in the Excel spreadsheet. So a lot of stuff you can do here. But we're going to keep it to some of the more simple day-to-day things. I really, Word, for example, Word is not the best word processor out there. It's the most popular, most commonly used word processor out there, which is why it's one you definitely need to know and why it's good to have. But there are better ones. PowerPoint's actually not even that great of a slideshow presentation. There are several better ones than that. But Excel is absolutely the top of its game. There is no program that is better at Excel than Excel at what Excel does. Excel in my mind is the reason for Microsoft to exist. So a really good program to learn some of the basics and not just from a business sense. I use Excel very regularly just for day-to-day things like figuring out, my budget for the rest of the month. How many bills do I need to pay? And how much money do I have to pay that? And what's the best way to organize those payments? Looking at different loans to see what loans might work out better for me payment-wise. Planning for a vacation and planning for the money for a vacation, seeing how things split up with flights or car rentals, hotels, things like that. Lots of times and places to use Excel, but best to know the basics of it, so that you know when to utilize it. So let's make another little. We're going to make another little accounting system here. And this time we're going to pretend that we're a theater, okay? So I'm going to say that I am tracking this from January, February, and March. Now, one great shortcut I can show you right off the bat is Excel has the ability to complete lists like that. So over here I'm going to write 1 and then 2. Next to that I'm going to write 2 and then 4. Next to that, I'm going to write 5 and then 10. Next to that, I'm going to write Monday and then Tuesday. Okay, so nice little typo there. It recognizes all sorts of lists like this. I'm going to select that 1 and 2. Now, if you look in the lower right-hand corner, there's a little green square there. I'm going to grab that square and I'm just going to drag it down. And if you look, there's a number popping up next to my cursor. That's what number would show up on the square I'm on. So I can see how far down I should go. So maybe I'll go to 10, and you'll see it just auto-fills that for me, okay? I can go do this same thing, and it recognizes that that is going by 2s, right? I can do the same thing here, and it recognizes that that is going by 5s. I can do the same thing here, and it recognizes that these are days of the week, okay? So a really quick way to fill in lists like that is you need to. So here I could go and I could grab this, and it would recognize that these are shorthand for months. I would fill that in. In this case, I'm just going to do 3 months, so I'll just leave it with those right there. Okay, so I'm now going to say that I want to know the tickets sold for that month. I want to know the ticket price for that month. I want to know what my revenue was for that month. So revenue is, again, the total amount of money that I brought in. I want to know what my expenses were for that month. And I want to know what the profit is for that month, okay? So let's just say that this month I sold 22,400 tickets, okay? And my ticket price is $8.50, okay? So I want to calculate what my revenue is. So I'm just going to type in equals, and I'm going to select my tickets sold, and then I'm going to type in times and my price, and I'm going to hit return, and there's my amount of revenue. Let's go ahead and set these as money. I'll do it all the way down through the, since that's what they're all going to be. Okay, now I need to know my expenses. So my expenses were how much I spent that month, obviously. So let's say that my expenses were $188,600, right? So then my profit is going to be equals my revenue minus my expenses. Okay, and there I have my breakdown for that month. So the nice thing about working with Excel, or one of the nice things about working Excel, is that I can prepare this sheet to do the calculations for me in the following months. Basically get it ready so that I don't have to type in all those things every single month. Basically put in any repeating information. So for example, the ticket price will always be $8.50. So I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to paste them in those two below. Tickets sold will change every single month. Revenue will change every single month. However, the formula for revenue will not. The revenue is always going to be my tickets sold times my ticket price. So what I can do is I can put that formula into my February, March, so that it knows always take whatever. Let's just take February, for example. I can tell it when the ticket sold information is put in for February, times that by the ticket price, and put that number in the revenue, right? I can tell that's where I want it to go. So you'll notice this is one of the ways that Excel differs a little bit from other programs. When I copy and paste this, it copies and pastes the formula. So when I select this, you can see up here in my formula bar, the formula for this is E equals B2 times C2. Well, when I pasted these down here, it didn't paste 190,400, it pasted my formula. However, notice it didn't paste the exact formula. The formula up here is B2 times C2. Down here, it pasted B3 times C3. Below that, it pasted B4 times C4. Now, the reason why Excel by default is pasting what you could consider a relative formula, or as a spatial formula. It's actually better. It's what we want when we're using Excel. If it had pasted the exact same formula down here, then it would have been giving me January's numbers, not February's numbers. I want February's numbers. So Excel is smart enough to know that I probably mean these two here. So how that works is that it's pasting it based upon their relative position to this cell right here. So it's, instead of saying equals B2 times C2, it's saying equals 2 to the left of this one times 1 to the left. Okay, so when I paste that down here, it does the same thing. 2 to the left times 1 to the left. 2 to the left times 1 to the left. And I get the formula that I want. Okay, so now those are just sitting there waiting. Now profit is another one that's going to be the same every time. It's always going to be my revenue minus my expenses. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy that formula down into those ones as well, right? Now, when February comes and I know how much we sold, I can just type the ticket sold number in here. Well, we sold 18,653 that month. And boom, automatically my revenue is filled. My profit is filled too, but it's the exact same as the revenue because I haven't put any expenses in yet. So it's basically saying this minus nothing. So now I need to put in my expense for that month. Let's say it was 78,653, and now I have my profit. So it saves me a lot of time. Once I put the spreadsheet together, all I need to type in are the variables that change, and the rest of it automatically does what it needs to do. Okay. We'll finish it off with March, say that things went up again, and that we had a little bit higher expenses because of that. And there we go. Now I have all my information. Okay. Now let's go back to that relative thing again. Sometimes I don't want it to do the relative copying and pasting. I want it to copy and paste the exact same space every single time. Let me give you an example of when that might be. I'm going to do this exact same oh geez, my brain just completely ledger. Exact same ledger, but I'm going to change one thing. So here we have the months. Here we have tickets sold. But instead of putting the ticket price, here's the thing. The ticket price stays the same every month. So I don't necessarily need to have that on every single line, right? So I'm just going to put it right here. I'm just going to say ticket price equals $8.50, right? So this is just kind of a general figure that will always be the same. And now I'm going to say revenue and expenses and profit. So down here are my things that change, listed month by month. And up here is a reference number, my ticket price, that always stays the same. So let's put in that same 22,400 for the first month. Okay. And let's put in the same 88,600 in expenses. Let's go ahead and format these. Oh, not that one. Let's format these as money. So now in revenue, I'm going to say that this equals my ticket sold times my ticket price. That worked just fine, got the same exact number. Now we know that in February, I sold 1,800 and, well, let's leave that blank for a second. Let's copy my revenue and let's paste those down there. Well, that didn't work. This one ended up blank and this one says value. If I go here and I type in the amount that we sold in February, 18,653, it didn't do anything over here. Well, let's take a look at this formula. Double click it so it highlights the cells. It's doing this one times this one. The reason why is because, just like I said, it's doing it based upon location. So it did the one to the left times the 1, 2, 3 up and 1 to the left. Well, now 1, 2, 3 up and 1 to the left is this blank square. Down here, 1, 2, 3 up, 1 to the left is tickets sold. So that's not going to work, right? Neither of those figures are working the way that we want it to work. So what I need is a formula that will always point to this exact square, always point to that ticket price. And I can do that with something called absolute values. The normal values we're dealing with in the copy and paste are the relative values, like I said. But this time I want absolute values. So I'm going to write that formula again. I'm going to say equals that times that. But the way that you make a value absolute, and this is just something you have to memorize. It's not difficult, but it doesn't really make much sense. It's just kind of something you have to memorize. You put a dollar sign before the column and before the row. So putting a dollar sign before the column makes the column absolute. Putting it before the row makes the row absolute. It means it'll never move column or row. Okay? So I'm going to put a dollar sign before this B, and I'm going to put a dollar sign before that 10. Now, my formula is B14, which is a relative value, and will move, times, oh, whoops, I meant to do that up here. Let's go ahead and do that right here. Okay, so now I've got B13, which is a relative value, times absolute B, absolute 10, so that won't move. So now if I copy this and paste them down below, it worked right. It shifted down the first number because that one isn't locked in, but it locked the second location where it needs to be, right? And now I can do this one the same, equals revenue minus expenses. And I can put in my expenses that I had up there, 78, 653, 92, 453. Copy and paste those. And I have the exact same ledger down here, pardon me, but without having this ticket price running the entire way down. Okay, so that's absolute sales versus, absolute sales versus relative sales, and can be very useful in working with these things. All right, so now that we know a little more about those things, let's go take a look at our sheet here and see if there's anything that we can do to make this do more of an automatic processing, so I don't have to do this every single time, type in as much every single time. Well, the only one that has a formula is my balance, right? My balance is always changing. Now, if it's an income, my balance goes up. If it's an expense, my balance goes down, okay? I'm only ever putting it in one place. So the income will always be 0 if the expense has a number. The expense will always be 0 if the income has a number. So one simple way I could do this, let's get rid of those, would be to make a formula that says equals income, equals balance, my balance sheet, plus the income minus the expense. Okay, so it did 1,000 plus nothing minus 120. And now I can copy that down to all of them, and it should work every time. In this place, it did my balance plus 800 minus nothing. And in this one, it did my balance above plus nothing minus 60. So let's say that on February 6th, we paid our rent, and our rent was $800. Let's actually, let me copy and paste these down a little bit further. Now look at this. It's automatically put, because I copied and pasted it, it's sticking the balance, the running balance, all the way down. I'm going to show you how we can fix that in a minute. But it still works. It is our balance. But I'm going to show you how we can make it look a little nicer in a minute. But I'm going to go and put my rent in here. I'm going to say it was $800. And you'll see that fixed that way. Okay? But if you don't like having this balance run down where things aren't there yet, I'm going to show you a little more advanced thing you can do that is extremely useful. I use this quite a bit. Excel has all sorts of formulas, right? There's formulas for calculating loans. There's formulas for summing things, all sorts of formulas. One formula it has is called an if-then statement. An if-then statement is a logical statement. You say, if this is this way, do this. If it's not that way, do that. Okay? And we use this sort of thing all the time in life. If it's cold outside, bring a jacket. If it's not, don't bring a jacket, right? These are really, really a simple concept, the idea of if something is this way, do this. If it's another way, do that. I'll show you a perfect example. I'm going to write an if-then statement. So I do this by saying equals and I type the word if. Then I do an opening parentheses to get started. And right here it tells you the format of this formula. That is, if logical test, meaning if what, and then comma, what you want to happen if it's true, and then comma, what you want to have happen if it's false, and then a parenthesis, okay? So what I can say is if, I'm going to say if this cell right here equals 5, then I want you to do, I'm going to put in parentheses, I'm going to put a quote. I want you to write, it's 5, and if it doesn't, do a comma here, I want you to write, nope. There we go. Now, right now, it just wrote nope, because I said if that equals 5, write it's 5, and if it doesn't equal 5, write nope. So it's a nope. Now watch what happens when I write a 5 here. It's 5. So this logical test is constantly looking for what's going on in this cell and if changing this based upon those results. So how is that useful here? Well, let's get rid of all these and go back to just having one formula. Okay, I'm going to do this formula as an if-then statement. I'm going to write equals if, okay, and I'm going to say, let's see, what's the easiest way to do this? We'll go with the item name because that will always be blank. So I'm going to say parentheses, if the item name equals, and I'm just going to do 2 quotation marks in a row, which is basically nothing in quotes. So I'm saying if there's nothing there, then I want you to put nothing here. So 2 quotation marks again. Or if there is something there, if that is false, then what I want you to do is I want you to do this formula. 1,000, same one we did before, plus, plus whatever's in the income minus whatever's in the expenses. Close my parentheses. Boom. So there's my AA, just like it was supposed to be, because this isn't blank. Now I'm going to copy that, and I'm just going to run it all the way down here. And you see what happened? It automatically put my calculations in those ones, but it didn't put any in the ones below that because I don't have anything in the item yet. So let's do another item. Let's say that on 8 February, we did another job. Let's say this was a logo. And the person paid us $500 for the logo. And there we go. It automatically calculated the balance for me. Okay? So you don't need to do that. It just makes it look a little cleaner by leaving the things blank underneath it when you don't have something in it already. So by creating a ledger like this, you're able to constantly have a good look at your balances for the, and see, oh yeah, okay, I've had, now here's another thing I would recommend for your ledger. I would want to have some totals. And down here, I would want to have my total income. And what I'm going to do that is I'm just going to do another formula. You can click right here for auto sum. That's one way you can do it. And I want this to go all the way up to there. Okay, then I can copy paste this. All right. So now, so that's just the sum of all those. So now this down here is constantly tracking how much money I've had in income so far and how much money I've had in expenses. So that's going to help me to keep track, because remember in that 3-year ledger, I know how much money I think my monthly income is going to be and how much money my monthly expenses are going to be. So if I hit halfway through the month and I haven't hit halfway what I thought my monthly income was going to be, well, I know I need to do some extra work to get some more income or find some way to cut back on my expenses. Or if I hit halfway through the month and I know that my expenses are looking quite a bit higher than I thought they were going to, I need to look and see what's going on. Okay? So this is a good way to track, a very basic way. There are much more, things that track a lot more and can really get into a lot more detail. But as far as just giving you the basic information that you need, this will help you to keep track of your money throughout the month and know what's going on. Okay. So let me know if you have any questions about any of that. You do not, again, for this assignment, you don't have to do these fancy if-thens if you don't want to. You can just do it like it is in the video that's listed in the assessment, or you can do it like I originally did. But just know that those are there for anyone who's interested in getting a little more advanced with it. All right. So what we're going to do now is we are going to take a 15-minute break. When we get back from the break, we will, When we get back from the break, we will look at the assignment and a few of the things that are necessary for that. So let me just set a timer here, and I will see you in 15 minutes. Okay, we are back. Let's make sure I have everything running right here. All right, let's go ahead and let's take a look at our assessment for this week, or sorry, our assignment for this week. So in our assignment for this week, we are going to be creating an invoice. An invoice is a very important part of a graphic design business because it's how we get paid. So let's go to the background. You've finished your client's job and now it's time to get paid. In order to do that, you're going to need an invoice. Since you are a design professional, this will need to be a professional looking document. It will also need to tie into your brand. Okay, so it has to be tied into your brand. So think logo, colors, things like that. You want your invoice to be functional and you want it to represent who you are as a designer. Prompt for this assignment: first of all, to be functional, your invoice needs to include some specific information. Read this article to learn what you will need. There's an article here from Entrepreneur Magazine. It says, remember these 8 rules. Whoa, get rid of this little ad. Remember these 8 rules before sending out your next invoice. And it goes over 8 things you want to remember to have on your invoice. Next, do some research on your own and look at example invoices from other designers. A quick search for graphic designer invoice at images.google.com will give you plenty to look at. Let's go take a look at that. Let's go to images.google.com. And we're going to go graphic designer invoice. You can see some of the invoices that other designers have done. Now you'll notice one thing that ties these together. They're very easy to follow. You don't want the information to be unclear. They're all fairly clean and easy to get around. But they also are colorful and interesting and represent the brand of the graphic designer, right? So you can go take a look at those for some ideas. Now you are going to create a PDF that you can use for your invoices. Remember, it needs to include, but is not limited to, your business information. So it needs to have your name, your address, your phone number, etc. Now in that etc., I would highly recommend your email address and your website. Definitely want your website on there. It needs to have a place to put your customer information. So who is this person that bought this? Now, you don't want to pre-fill that out because you want this invoice to be used for different customers. So don't make that a permanent part of the file. Just make sure you have a place for customer information. Again, a place for an invoice number. So whenever it says a place, that means we don't want it pre-filled out. We just want a place for it. So it makes basically a heading and then a editable field in the PDF. A place for the date and the terms of the job. A place for quantity, description, and price. A place for tax, delivery, and any other charges. Okay? And you're going to create your invoice in InDesign. Create your invoice in InDesign. And it needs to be submitted as a PDF with fillable fields. Okay? Now, some of you may have never done a PDF with fillable fields before, so we're going to look at that really quick and make sure that everyone's clear on what that means. So let's go ahead and open InDesign. And we're going to make a new document. Now, I would highly recommend working with in a grid with this. To help you really have a better idea of where to lay things out. So I'm going to go up to layout on mine, and I'm going to say I want to create guides. And I'm going to go ahead and do a 8-row, 12-column grid that's fit to the margins, like so. Okay, this is going to help me get an idea of where I want columns and things like that. But for this, we're not going to do the entire thing. We're just going to do a couple of fields so you get an idea. So I'm going to create a couple of fields here. Let's make one right here. Let's go ahead. Now you want to be measuring. Actually, let's move this one over to the right side. So we've got that locked within the grid there. I also want to keep track of how tall it is. So I'm going to make this 0.5 inches tall. Okay. And then I'm going to make another field down below that like so. Okay. And this is going to be where the address is going to go. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to make a text box and I'm going to type address. Now, because I want this to look nice, I'm going to go ahead and pick a good font that I want. Let's go with a bold on that. And I'm going to move this down to the bottom. So I'm going to say object text frame options, and I'm going to go ahead and just put that down there on the bottom. Okay. So far I have this, and you can't see these fields, but they're there. So what do I want to do in order to make these fields visible? I could give them a slight fill. In this case, though, I'm going to give them a little bit of a stroke. Or I could put an underline underneath them, which is also well, I'm going to do that. Let's do underlines. But I could give it a stroke. But this case, I'm just going to do underlines. I'm going to go here and run a line across the bottom of it. And give it a little bit of weight. And then I'm going to do this, make a copy of that down in the next section. Okay. So it looks like this, but I actually have text boxes here and here. Okay. Now I want these text boxes to be fillable fields. I'm not this address thing, that's going to stay the way it is. Not the, let's see here, not the 2 lines on the bottom. Those are going to stay the way they are. I want these boxes. So in order to get that, I need a panel called the Buttons and Forms panel. I can get that by going to Window, Interactive, Buttons and Forms. I've already got mine out. So I select the first of those boxes and I come over here and I change the type. And here I can do buttons, I can do check boxes, I can do drop-down lists, all sorts of things that I can do. But in this case, I just want it to be a text field. Okay, so I've chosen that to be a text field. And I don't need to really do anything else. I could change the font size down here if I want, but I'm not really going to worry about it. And now I'm going to go and I'm going to select the next box down and I'm going to do the same thing. I want you to be a text field too. Okay, so I have 2 fields for address. You know, often you need 2 lines for your address, so I'm going to go ahead and just put them like that. And in reality, I probably should make these a little wider. Addresses sometimes need more room. Okay, let's go ahead and grab this. And now they're wider. So I'm not going to do any more of these. Of course, yours is going to have all those areas. You know, I would put my information up here or over here. Some were branded. I'd have the customer name, the terms, all that sort of stuff. But for this case, just to show you how these fillable forms work, I'm just going to worry about this address. Okay. So once I have my invoice done, I need to make sure that every one of the spaces where I want to be able to change the information, price, what they order, quantity, that sort of stuff, is fillable. Once I have that done, I just go up to File, and I change it to Export. And under Export, I want to choose Adobe PDF Interactive, not Print. I want Interactive, okay? And of course, I would name this whatever I want, so we'll call this Invoice Template. And I'm just going to save it to my desktop. Now I can leave all this the way I want to, you know, the way it is. It'll work just fine. If there are changes you need, you can do that. But for this, the default works fine. So now I've got this invoice. If I open this invoice in Preview, you'll see it looks just like I wanted it to. But when I come and click in here, I have a fillable area. Now Preview doesn't work as well with the Adobe stuff, so it's putting things higher than I wanted them to be, right? But let's go ahead and open this in The reason I opened in preview first is to show you that they don't show up, because when you open an Acrobat, something interesting happens. They're highlighted in blue. You see that? So it still has what I want here, but what I want is highlighted in blue. Now, notice that my text is going across the middle of it there and not on the line. I'm going to show you how to fix that in a second. But as far as the blue highlighting, that is just a setting in Acrobat. Acrobat is set, let's see if I can find where it is. It's somewhere in here. I don't want to waste too much time on it, but somewhere in here it basically says to display your, oh, here we are, forms. So it says to highlight the fields in that blue. So if I told it not to highlight the fields at all, they wouldn't show up. It just does that so they're easy to see and you don't miss any of them. So don't worry about that. Don't be like, why is this blue? I didn't tell it to be blue. It's because of Acrobat. So okay, now that I've seen that, there's a couple of changes I want to make. So let's go take a look at my original. Oops. First of all, I don't want the typing to go to the bottom or the middle like that. Well, again, that is in the object. And, oh, I should have changed it beforehand. Well, before I converted, should have said text frame options and put it on the bottom. But in this case, it's not even going to matter because I thought those were way too big. I don't want them to be so big. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to change these to just be 1/4 of an inch high. They don't need to be any higher than that. And then I'm going to move them, because since they're now 1/4 of an inch high, they're not in the right place. And that should work okay. And now if I go and export this again, you'll see that that works a little better because it doesn't have so much space to get lost in. Okay, so that's all there is to creating the PDFs with fillable fields, right? But we want to make sure, because now you've got this invoice, you can really quickly open up a PDF of it on your computer, type in the information you need, send it off to a client. Okay? So if you have any questions about creating this, please let me know. Just make sure that you are putting all this information at least. You may find other things in this article that you would like to have in part of yours, and I would definitely make sure it needs to be branded to you. So that means your logo and looking like it's coming from your company. Okay? All right, so the last thing I wanted to do today, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about my guidelines for my own business. I get a lot of questions from people asking about sort of the general, beginning to end process of working with a new client and ways to not be taken advantage of, because you could definitely get taken advantage of if you don't cover your bases and make sure that you're protected. Okay, so these are, like I wrote here, these are the rules that I live by in my own business. You can vary any of these to meet your needs. These are not like the hard and fast rules. It's whatever works best for your business. But these are the ones that work for mine, so I can serve as a case study at the very least. Okay? So when a client first comes and talks to me, I started creating the creative version. But first of all, we discuss that, we meet, and we talk about what they're looking for. And I do a client brief where I basically get information on them as a client, asking important questions like, what are your favorite colors? What colors do you hate? Let's say I'm doing a logo. I'd say, what are some examples of logos that you really like? What are some examples of logos that you don't like very much? Who's your target audience? What things have worked for you in the past? All sorts of questions. Then once I have that, then I'll take some time and I'll put together a creative brief. And that creative brief is basically basic ideas of colors and direction and things that I'm thinking about doing for the project. At that point, we meet and we discuss the creative brief. They decide they want to go forward with the project. Then I always insist upon half up front and I insist upon the other half upon delivery. Now, this may sound like a bold request, but it's actually very common in our industry. It kind of protects both parties. If I do a whole bunch of work from someone and then they change their mind and I haven't gotten any pay, then unless they're nice enough to pay me some, which some people would be, but a lot of people would just say, no, never mind, we're not going to do this and we're not going to pay you either, then I'm just out for the work that I did. I don't have any compensation. So if I demand half up front and half, not demand, that's the wrong word, if I put in my terms that half needs to be paid up front and half upon delivery, then that means that if something happens halfway through and we part ways, at least I've gotten paid half of the project to help me, to compensate me for the time that I spent so far. And I have had that happen. I had one example is I was doing a logo. There was a guy who was an architect on an architecture firm, and he'd hired me to do a logo. He was retiring, and he was basically selling his company to a partner that had been working there, who was a lot younger, and she wanted to completely rebrand the company, so it kind of felt like a new thing and wasn't necessarily just a holdover of his company. Well, she wanted to design the logo. She actually came up with an idea for a logo she wanted to do. He didn't think that was a good idea, so he said, let's hire this graphic designer. And so I went in and we did all this work, and basically after I had submitted several examples and we'd gone partway through the process, this woman just kept insisting, I really want to do the logo that I wanted to do, the one that I designed. And he relented, said, okay, fine, if you want to use your logo, use your logo. And so I then was done with the job, but I'd already been paid half of the job, so it was fine. That was about halfway through the process anyway. And we parted ways, feeling both of us happy with each other, no hard feelings, and them feeling like they got what they want and me feeling like I got paid for my time. Okay. Now, the reason we do half up front instead of getting everything up front is to protect them. If they pay us everything up front and then we end up taking too long or not ending up doing a product they want, then they feel like, well, now I've paid you all the money, and that worries me, right? So half up front, half on delivery is the way that I work and the way many people work in this industry. The next thing I do is I write up a work agreement, okay? This basically is an agreement of what I'm doing and how much they're gonna pay for that. Now in this, I'm very, very specific, and I would recommend that you are too. The base level that I start at, and this may change depending on the project, but the base level that I start at is I say that I am going to come up with 3 initial directions that are very, very different, okay? And of these 3 initial directions that are very, very different, they're going to pick the one that they like the most, and they're going to give me feedback. They're going to say why they like it, why they don't, what things they'd like to see changed with it, what things they'd like to see enhanced with it, what things they'd like to go away, right? Then I'm going to go and I'm going to take that direction that they chose, and I'm going to come up with 3 different drafts of that, 3 different versions, so slightly different versions of the same direction. Then I'm going to go in and they're going to pick one of those, and they're going to say, yeah, and here's what I would like, and here's some changes I'd like that back. Then I'm going to refine the one they picked, and then I'm going to bring them in that final one, and I'm going to say, here's the one, and they're going to give me some last feedback on that, things that they like, and I'm going to then deliver them the final things. So they're going to get 3 revisions, basically, 3 drafts, 3 levels of revisions. Now, the reason I do that is because you always want that clear. A company could go on and on and on and on and on asking for revisions. And I'll give you a real world example of that. I don't know if probably some of you have heard about this, but there was a situation when The Little Mermaid came out that the theatrical posters that were released for The Little Mermaid, So the posters that were up in all the movie theaters where people were going to see it had some pornographic images hidden on them, right? So some crude images had some swear words on it, but they were all hidden, so you couldn't see them unless you knew where to look, right? They were immediately pulled out and pulled away and replaced. Well, I said this in week one. I used to mentor with a Disney animator, and he was telling me the story of how that happened. Apparently, Disney had hired a graphic design firm to create these posters, and this was a graphic design firm that they had not worked with before, and so obviously who had never worked with Disney before either. Now, Disney, for anyone who has worked for them before, is notorious for revisions. They want everything to be perfect and exactly the way they want it, so they do a lot of revisions. So someone working with them needs to know that, needs to account for that in their bid and how much they're going to charge for it. This company did not know that, and they didn't put explicitly that they, how many revisions they were going to do. And they gave Disney a bid and said, this is how much we're going to charge for that. And so Disney said, great. And Disney started the process. And then Disney did revision after revision after revision after revision. And it was a lot more work than this company thought it was going to be. Well, they just kept thinking, this company thought, well, it's obviously a lot more work than they thought too. And so we'll just charge them more and it'll be fine. Now, that's a side lesson. When you're making a bid, the last thing you want is to come in well over your bid. Coming in under your bid, sure, they'll be really happy about that. Coming in at your bid, they're going to be fine. Don't come in over your bid. In fact, I've had times when I bid a little bit too short and I just decided to eat it, not to charge the extra, because I didn't want to make them, to have them have a bad taste in their mouth for me charging them more than I said I would. But this company went to Disney and said, here's what you owe us. And Disney said, wait a minute, no, we agreed on this amount. And that company said, well, that was before all those revisions. You did a lot of revisions. And so this accounts for the extra time that we spent because of the revisions. Well, Disney said, sorry, we're not paying for those. We were paying what we told you we were going to pay you. And they just wrote them that money. Now, the mistake that Disney made was that they did that while this company still had the deliverables. That Disney hadn't received the files for the poster yet. And so this design company was really angry, and they went in and they kind of snuck in a bunch of dirty images and swear words onto the poster to get back to Disney. And like I said, you had to know where they were to see them. So it's not like Disney noticed it, and Disney put them out in the movie theaters before knowing what was going on. So again, always make it very clear how many revisions you are going to do, what your bid includes, as far as how many times you'll revise things. So once we agree upon that, I have them sign it. Now, always make sure in your client brief that you know who is the person who is making decisions, who is the one who is authorized to sign off on these things. Because the other thing you don't want to run into is that someone is saying, yep, I want that one. Yep, this is great. Yep, go forward that way. And then you get to the end and find out, okay, now let me just show this to my boss. Oh, he said he doesn't like it. We should go with a different way. And you thought that the person saying yep to you the whole time was the one who was the final say. So you need to find out at the beginning, who is the person who is the final say? Who is the one that is the decision maker on this? And they're the one you want signing off on these things. Okay? So I have that person sign off on the work agreement, how much I'm doing, what I'm doing, and how much they're paying for it. Then I create 3 initial directions. And again, they're very different, not just slight variations on things, very different ways to go with their project. And then we meet. Sometimes that's a virtual meeting, sometimes just emailing and talking on the phone, sometimes in their office, but we meet. They pick one of those 3. They give me notes on what they like and dislike, and then they initial or sign to the one that they chose. Now, this is very important. This is so that if we get to the end of the process and they say, you know what, never mind, I never really like this one, let's go this other way, you can say, you have proof. No, I have your signature on this. This says this is the one you chose. I'm happy to go back and go the other direction, but I would need to charge you more for that. Okay? Then I go ahead and make 3 revisions based upon that initial direction. So now we're getting more refined, and it's 3 slight variations on the same direction based upon the notes and feedback that they gave me, and then we meet again. This is the final feedback meeting. So they let me know again what things they like and dislike, what their thoughts are on it, sign off on the revision of the 3 that they like. Then I go into final revisions. I do some fine tuning, and I deliver them the final project. And then they pay me the second half of our agreed amount. Okay. So that's the way that I do it. Again, decide what works best for you, but this has worked well for me. The most important thing is to make sure that you are specific in making agreements, you get signatures on things, and that you know that the person you're dealing with is the one that has the final say. Okay? So on Thursday, we will be doing in-class critiques of the 2 marketing pieces that you did last week. And so I look forward to those. I've got some really great stuff. Can't wait to go over them with you. If you have any questions about anything, please let me know. And that's everything that I have to go over for today. So I hope you guys have a great couple of days, and I will see you on Thursday. Thanks.